Good evening, everyone. My name is Buffy Squires and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator here at Musculoskeletal Australia. I would like to warmly welcome you to tonight's webinar and I'm so glad that you could join us. I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional owners of the land on which our organisation operates and where we come together to work. We recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples' continuing connection to land, waterways and culture. We pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. If you're new to our MSK Kids program, you might like to take a moment to check out our website. You'll find school resources, past webinar recordings, information on transition, and a section related to dealing with pain. You'll also find the contact details for our free MSK helpline, where you can chat with a nurse about any concerns that you may have. If your child is aged between 13 and 20, you may also like to check out our new online chat group, Teen Talk. It's run through Discord, which, if you have teenagers, they're probably on already. It's a great place for teens to come together and chat with others who get it. You can find more information on our website. I'd also like to encourage you to follow us on our Facebook page and our Instagram page. That's where you'll get regular updates on what we're up to. Our presenters for this evening are Hong Nguyen and Zoe Jones, occupational therapists from Support Kids in Pain, or SCIP, in Queensland. Hong studied occupational therapy at the University of Queensland, and since 2012, she's been specialising in chronic persistent pain with an interest in children, adolescents and young adults. She's been the clinical coordinator at SCIP since 2017 and is passionate about multidisciplinary group pain management programs and fostering collaboration, support and knowledge sharing among health professionals. She enjoys helping young people flourish and function to their fullest, whether that's at home, school, work, in their hobbies, social environments and more. Zoe graduated from the University of Queensland and has worked as an occupational therapist at the Queensland Children's Hospital in Brisbane since 2010. She's a core member of the multidisciplinary SCIP team, having been involved since its inception in 2012. During this time, she's worked with children and adolescents with chronic pain conditions and has completed several projects and presentations in this area. She loves developing new skills and seeing the impact her job has in enabling children and adolescents to reach their full potential. Tonight we also have Penny. Penny's a psychologist from SCIP, and Penny will be helping to answer some of the questions that you or your child might have. So without further ado, I'll hand proceedings over to Hong and Zoe. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks very much, Buffy. We're grateful to be here tonight and collaborate with MSK Australia, MSK Kids, and proud SCIP team members. So we're really happy to represent SCIP tonight too. Just wanted to point out a couple of things with our presentation. The information that you'll hear today is how we present to our young people and our families in our pain management programs that we run at SCIP. The program that we run for kids as young as 8, we've had older teenagers up to sort of 16, 17 years do this program as well. And some of them have MSK conditions, so Ehlers-Danlos, JIA, joint hypermobility, CRPS, scoliosis, and specific conditions like Perthes disease. So it's very likely that some of the information that you hear tonight, you may have already heard. And I want to also just point out the excellent webinar by the 2 physios late last year for MSK Australia on keeping active with pain. One of the physios, Nicole, is our SCIP team physio too. But it's actually really great to have information reinforced by different health professionals. We all have a shared perspective on pain management for children and young people, but we each bring our own little spin on it. So hopefully some of the information that we present today might land maybe differently for you. And you know, as OTs, we use a lot of language around function, everyday activities. So that's just a little bit of what you can expect with the information today. We also like to acknowledge the traditional of the custodians of the land in which we meet and gather today. Zoe and I are on the land of the Yungabar and Jagera people here in south of Brisbane. That's a lovely picture that we wanted to share with you from a local spot here. But also, as a matter of courtesy and respect, we would love to get to know you as well. So we have 3 simple polls that, if you don't mind, could complete for us just by clicking on a mouse. So the first poll is just to tell us who you are. So if you're a parent or a carer, a child, an adolescent, young adult, or if you're a support provider, so healthcare workers, teachers, relatives, friends. Oh, wow. Okay. So we've got, I think, a diverse group, mostly support providers, which is great, and parents and carers and adolescents. So that's excellent. Thank you. Okay. The second poll is just to tell us where you're from. So if you're in a regional, remote area, or remote or rural area, if you live in a regional area or country town, and or if you live in a sort of metropolitan sort of city area. Wow, okay, that's great. So we've got a mix of remote, regional, metropolitan. That's excellent, sort of 50-50 almost. The third poll, being OTs, we're particularly interested if you've seen an occupational therapist for flare-ups and fatigue. If you're unsure, there's an option for that too. Oh, great. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So majority tonight haven't accessed an occupational therapist for whatever reason, and certainly about 26% have, and 2% unsure. Thank you so much for filling in this poll. It's actually really useful for us to get a feel of who's here tonight and to sort of be able to expect maybe some particular questions that might come our way. But of most important, it's, I think, really important for everyone online tonight to know who else is here, because for a lot of young people, the families living with persistent pain can be very isolating and very lonely, and often they don't know many people experiencing similar things. And we know access issues, varies across Australia, and that can be a barrier to accessing care. So I guess as occupational therapists, I think we also tend to look creatively in terms of sort of interventions or strategies. So hopefully you all get some good ideas tonight as well. And I think when you're living in, particularly in sort of areas where access to services is limited, sometimes this is having to think a little bit outside the box is required.
So Hong's said that we're both OTs. So if you haven't heard of occupational therapy or OT before, it's a good promo for us. Our role is to enable young people and even grown-ups to participate or engage in occupations, or simply the things that you do in everyday life. So this might include things like providing support for you to be able to look after yourself, whether that's at home or school or work, and participate or engage in things like school and work and leisure. So if you're experiencing, or you know someone experiencing pain, flare-ups and fatigue, it can seem a lot more challenging to be able to do these things. So OTs, as Hong said, we can provide these strategies so you don't miss out on the important things of life. And obviously we're going to talk about a lot of these strategies tonight. So in terms of what we're going to speak about tonight, we're going to look at the mind-body pain connections. We're going to look at practical tips for managing flare-up and fatigues, hopefully lots of things to go home with, and some more resources and where to access further support. So like we said, it's a short presentation, so let's hold off questions to the end if we can. And it is being recorded. We're going to try and not to record the Q&A just for privacy reasons. We know that we've said it before, but we've got Penny with us as well, who's our clinical psychologist, who's up in North Queensland. So she will be looking at the different questions and can help us answer some of those things at the end as well. So we want you to get the most out of this presentation, no matter who you are in terms of who's logged in tonight. We would really like to begin by getting you to reflect for yourself or for the people that you're working with. So How are you currently managing your fatigue and flare-ups? And what have you tried in the past? And are you open to trying new things, or are you open to learning new things that you can share with the people in your life? So there's going to be lots of tips to go away and try. And we know that not everything will work for everyone, but it's important to always give things a go first. And remember that we're all in this together. So use the support people that you have and to help you apply these things to your life. And yeah, just on a side note, if you are actually someone who's logged in who does experiencing fatigue and flare-ups right now, please make sure that you are looking after yourself during this presentation. Get yourself comfortable, whether you need a hot drink or whether you need to move around or have a stretch break. Please take care of yourself while we're talking.
So I'm going to start with talking about pain connections. This is particularly important when understanding flare-ups and fatigue. Because I think essentially it's about understanding our own human bodies, really. So pain is linked to our mind, our body, and everything in our world. If you can just have a moment to stop and think about this, everything that we experience in our mind, our moods, our feelings, even memories, everything that we experience and feel through our bodies. All our bodily systems, cardiovascular, digestion, for example, sleep, and everything in our world, so our school life, home life, they all connect and shape our experience of life. So I think naturally, pain, yes, do have all these connections to mind, body, and world. At Skip, we actually encourage all our young people to still come to our clinics even when experiencing a flare-up and bouts of fatigue. It's actually very helpful for us to see this in real time, to support a young person as they're going through this, which would be really hard to do. But it's really important for them to understand the body, mind, world connections as they're experiencing the flare or the fatigue, to practice the strategies with encouragement, have feedback from health professionals, from the team, and supervision, because often they might not have the confidence or want to try these new skills or implement some things that they've learned. So it's all of this is really part and parcel of learning and developing skills, really, isn't it? And we do tend to see flare-ups and fatigue happen at particular points in time as well. We know common life events like starting a new school semester recently, or going on a school camp, starting a casual job for the first time can bring on flare-up and fatigue. So these are just some common everyday mind, body, world connections to pain. So I'm not going to go and talk about all the little circles on this slide, so I would love for you to just have a closer look at them while I have a few things to say. But from this point onwards, I'm going to sort of use the abbreviation BMW, as in the posh, flashy car brand, just to talk about mind, body, world connections, because saying that is quite a mouthful repeatedly. So on this slide, you'll notice that there are a lot, but not all, BMW connections to pain. So in the orange, you'll see body connections. In the blue are some mind connections to pain, and in the green are some world connections. And as you can see, pain really interferes with a lot of things and can create unhealthy changes. And also, we know with these consequences, they can also influence each other as well. So all this actually, strengthens those pain connections. And in reality, these lines and these arrows, you'll would see them going everywhere, really, linking all the circles, all the dots. So there is a lot of connections here that can influence pain, and vice versa, pain influencing all these areas in life. I vividly remember a young person tell us or describe to us that pain is like a team sport. There are lots of players involved, and when you look at this, it's true that pain has lots of buddies, and a common, I think, buddy is the sort of pain and stress, and they egg each other on. So if pain's really bad, it's going through a flare-up, naturally that's an added source of stress. But also what you're going through in life can be stressful, and we know that can influence pain as well. So recognizing B&W connections is really the first step, and that can be the hardest, especially for young people, and that's where, as Zoe mentioned, we need to involve support people. And the next step would be working at the game plan, filled with strategies. The good thing with this slide is that all these circles around pain give us areas that we can work on to have more healthy connections and hopefully maybe weaken or shrink those connections to pain. Okay, so another little interactive piece. We would love to find out from you, what are your top strategy for managing pain and fatigue? If you could type into the question box, perhaps, just the number one tool that comes into your mind, that you find most helpful for managing flare-up, fatigue, or both. And we'll have Penny assist us with having a bit of a summary of perhaps maybe the top five sort of common tools. We do ask, this is a question that we asked all of our young people on day one of the program when we do this B&W activity or exercise. Often or not, people already have some tools in place, and it's quite handy for other people to know as well. So we'll give you guys maybe about 30 seconds or so, and I'll wait for Penny to give us a bit of a summary.
Yeah, so we've got quite a few suggestions here already, but I guess if we're summarising the top 5, people have put down things like pain medication, using music or other forms of distraction, things like exercise or physiotherapy, and then we have pacing our activities and using heat or cold packs. They're probably the main strategies that people have put down so far.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, thank you. I think it's I think there's probably a lot of things that we have heard from our young people as well. And we actually had a group start today with us. Yesterday. And when we do this activity, we get them to reflect on what sort of area, like is it the body, is it the mind, or the world, that these strategies help with. And what we do find is what works for someone maybe more in the body area can be also really helpful for someone who finds it really applicable for them in the mind area or the world area. So there's lots of overlaps, and I think that's just a nice, again, another example to show the very close B&W connections. But yes, I'll hand over to Zoe to do the sort of 101 to fatigue and flare-ups.
Lovely. Thanks, Holly. Thanks, everyone, for sharing. It's really great that we can hear from you, particularly if you are someone experiencing this fatigue and flare-ups, and sharing is so important and so useful. So let's start off by just simply describing what fatigue is. So fatigue goes beyond the feeling of just being sleepy. So it's more of this constant feeling of tiredness or weakness or lethargy. And there's usually a combination of reasons as to why someone might be fatigued. So if you're living a healthy lifestyle, you're eating well, you're sleeping regularly, and you're getting good exercise into your habits, but you're still feeling fatigued, it's important to get some medical opinion about whether there's something else going on or whether you need further investigations. But let's reflect for ourselves. So even if you aren't going through this yourself, reflect anyway, or reflect on the people that you might work with. Are you experiencing fatigue, and what are you currently doing to manage it? Okay, so the term flare-up is often used to describe specific conditions. So people often say, I'm having a flare-up of my eczema or my arthritis, but we're going to be talking specifically about having a flare-up in pain. So this means that you experience a spike in your pain levels that is much higher than what is considered usual for you. And a flare-up will be different for you than it is for anyone else. So it's good to determine what might be a trigger or a cause for that flare-up, particularly if it's happening regularly. Triggers can be internal things like getting sick or feeling stressed or having an injury, or they can be external. So things like potentially having a negative experience with a health professional, sorry if that's happened, or even having to participate in something compulsory at school, like a sporting event. So reflect again for yourself. Have you experienced or noted or seen someone experience a flare-up before, and what have you tried or what have they tried in the past? And you may have discussed some strategies with the people in your life that are helping you, but we're going to try and go through some strategies together. And there may be some of the ones that you've already mentioned. So as you can imagine, there are so many different strategies for managing fatigue and flare-ups, and not surprisingly, a lot of these can overlap. So we're going to actually speak about them together and how you might be able to use them for both things. So we have had a look at the research, and based on our experience, these are just some of the things we're going to talk about. And of course, like Hong said, of course, our mind and our body and our world fits in, and Hong's going to talk more about this a bit later. And she's also going to speak about some of the tools that we can show you around self-management and pain management, which you see on the slide, and which is really putting a plan in place to be able to manage yourself, manage your own pain and fatigue. So let's talk about lifestyle. We really love this picture, Skip. It shows us that you need to have a good balance of sleep, diet, and physical activity to maintain a healthy lifestyle. It's easier said than done, right? Particularly if you're experiencing pain and fatigue. But all of these can impact one another if you don't manage them well and really look at them. So at Skip, we really do have a look at how they impact each other. We know that if you're not getting enough sleep, you don't really feel like being physical, and so you end up having a really poor diet. And then if you're not eating well, you don't really feel like exercising, and then you don't really sleep, and the cycle kind of goes on and on. And it's not just for people experiencing pain and fatigue. It can just be for anyone if you're not doing these things. And it's good stuff, because we have these tips for ourselves as well, because we're not always doing the right thing. So we like to get people to get one practical strategy for themselves. So it might just be things like one sleep tip, one physical activity tip, and one tip for the nutrition. So it could be as simple as, reducing screen time, trying to go out for a walk with the dog. So exercise doesn't have to be sport necessarily, or, even trying to limit the amount of dessert that you might have. So keeping things simple, particularly if you're finding it hard to manage pain and fatigue, not trying to overwhelm yourself with so many strategies that you can't manage them all together. So think of energy conservation or expenditure like a battery. This is a good example. If you use a battery too much, if you use your phone or your laptop, or if you're using a toy too much, it tends to run out. But if you conserve or save that energy slowly, it can last that little bit longer. So for you, this might mean that you have enough energy for more important and enjoyable things in your life. So reflect again for yourself. Can you look at your week, or can you look at the person that you're helping's week, and where are you putting the most effort in? Where are you doing too much? What can you see there? And can you conserve more energy when you're getting more of that fatigue in particular? Is there something that you can do in steps or stages? For example, if you're getting ready for school, can you try things like packing the bag the night before, sitting down to get dressed rather than standing? Just really simple things so that you can save and bottle that energy that you can use for other things that you might miss out on, like going to a birthday party or catching up with friends. And setting goals, it can seem like a chore, but breaking them down into steps can really help when it comes to fatigue and flare-ups. If you can, hopefully you can see this lovely picture here. So this is one of the young people that I saw. They've broken them down into really small, achievable steps. So starting small is the key. So if you're experiencing that fatigue and flare-up, it might be that, like this person, you might want to get back to playing soccer. They were really keen for that. So you've got to start small. So the first step might be just being able to come up with some strategies with the people around you to manage the pain. And then you might try things like putting the boots back on, kicking the soccer ball around in the yard, playing with the dog, and eventually you're able to do more and more as you head back to soccer training, and then eventually be able to play the game. And the goals can have a longer time frame. They don't have to be things that happen overnight. We know things don't happen overnight. And I'm a really big believer in rewarding yourself along the way. This young person did. If you can really read things, I think at the end there, they got to have their birthday party, got to go to Movie World, but again, getting parents' approval. I'm not for monetary rewards or anything like that. So this person wanted to get back to soccer, but there was a journey. You can see the journey. It's really visual. They've started small, They know that things have taken steps, and they've used the OT and other family to help. And a visual chart can be really nice because it can be nice for other people to see. So if it is a goal around sport, you can you can give it to the coach, you can give it to school, family, to really help other people get involved and get beside you or the person going through it. So again, having a routine or a plan can seem boring or lame to a young person, but we know through work, we know from research they work. Our nervous system is wired to know that in the day we're active, we're doing things, and at night we need rest and we need that balance of a healthy lifestyle. So even having a weekly plan written out or a daily one is also great. Things like what you've got on, what you can fit in, where you can cut things out, and having time to connect yourself things and to take regular breaks. And having a plan can help you really bring all those things together. So looking at your lifestyle, the energy conservation, and even the goals as well. And do this with someone else. Don't have to feel like you're trying to do all this yourself. So having, if you're not someone who likes a written plan, I'm a big person on having your phone or your iPad or a smartwatch, something that can really help you, have gentle reminders and things like that. And then there's finding other ways to do things. So if you are someone who has a pain condition, it may require you to do things in other ways. So using things like assistive technology or equipment so that you really don't miss out on things. So if you're eligible for NDIS, we know there's lots of things that you can access to make things easier at home, for example. And then simple strategies like wearing Velcro shoes rather than lacing up shoes, or using a mobility aid for longer distances, sitting on a chair to shower or get dressed. But again, seeing a health professional for you might be better in terms of getting those specific tips for yourself. And ergonomics, as you can see in this picture, is really looking at ways to support your body when you're doing a task. So if you're doing a lot of work on the laptop or at a desk at home, making sure that you're looking after your joints, taking lots of regular rest breaks, having a comfy and supportive seat and a setup. And there's actually really great resources online. School would be really useful for resources, and again, any health professionals as well. And finally, before we look at pacing, which I know has been spoken about with the strategies, we'll look at this common pattern that we see in young people experiencing pain. So particularly as a young person, when you've got lots of things on and you've got that real fear of missing out on stuff, it's easy to get caught in this cycle, what we call the boom bust cycle. You might have heard this before already. So it's where when you feel good, you do too much, your pain flares up, and then you need to rest. And if you look at this graph, over time, your levels of activity decrease and you end up not doing much at all. So it might even be that you end up bedridden or not going to school anymore. And there's obviously a lot of factors that can be at play, such as that mind-body world. So let's take a little bit of a look further at pacing. So this diagram is a lot more simple than the one you've just seen. So in order to pace yourself, it's good to figure out what you can do comfortably and then gradually do more over time, kind of like that goal-setting page that you saw from the person that I'd seen before. So returning to soccer, that's what they wanted to do. So with the help of your support people, and that can be a health professional, it can be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be a coach. You can figure out where to start. And like I said before, it might be that you start doing things like kicking the ball in the backyard. So on your good days, where the pain and fatigue are not so overwhelming, do what you can, but don't overdo it. Don't try and do too much. And on those harder days, don't just do nothing. If you're feeling really rotten, it's easy just to kind of sit and not want to do anything. But even just getting out in the backyard, getting out in nature, trying to do a lot of things can be helpful. And you might find that using a plan, like we've said, or a smartwatch or a phone or any of the tech that's around today that I'm less familiar with, you can build up that tolerance and you'll be able to do more over time and feel great about it. So it can be really hard to reflect and change, can't it? Particularly when you're going through this stuff. It's so hard. And I'm saying these things as someone who also has to really think about these things. And working with young people, we don't kind of go, okay, get all these things and do them. Like I said at the start, really try and think about what might work for you and give some new things a go, or try some new things with the people that you're working with. So have a think about for yourself what might have been some causes or triggers for when you've particularly had a flare up, but also what might be the triggers around fatigue as well. So we're really looking at early warning signs, and it's hard to do in that moment, but you might find that other people notice. things. And it can be hard as having a parent sort of say, oh, I noticed that when you're doing this, when you're a bit anxious, or when you've had a big day, you don't always want to hear that. I know that you don't want to hear that. But it might be that, when you're doing something nice together, like eating dinner together, you can have that discussion about, what triggers they might see happen. And triggers can be anything. They can be things like big life events that are unexpected, or having something out of the blue in your routine. So understanding those signs, those warning signs and triggers can really help you to start making the changes. And we're just going to show you a tool that we use at Skip that you might have used before with one of your health professionals if you're someone going through this. So these are traffic lights. And we use this as a pacing tool because at Skip, we like to keep things pretty simple. We like to use strategies that you can take away and use in all parts of your life. So as you can see here, even if you don't know, even if you don't drive, we know that traffic lights are really easy to understand. So the green zone is this go zone. This is where you can put how you're feeling on the good days. It might be that you're experiencing pain, but you can still do a bit more than what you normally can. So the red zone up the top is the flare-up zone. So this is where things can seem a lot more challenging. You can put things in there like how you're feeling, what might be more challenging, and what might you need help with. And lastly, the middle zone is the most important and particularly useful for helping you to pace and identify those warning zones for the flare-ups in particular. So we call this the warning zone, as it's where you can list things that might be those early triggers or warning signs for a flare-up. Things like how you might be feeling in terms of your emotions or thoughts, pain, and activity levels. And again, getting help from someone who might know you really well as well. And the reason we put the strategies in this yellow zone is because this is where we want to put our strategies in place when those triggers come about. So if you know what the trigger is, if it's, for example, feeling anxious, your strategies might be that you try some deep breathing, the listening to music, like some of you mentioned, or even getting out in nature. And it's okay to get in the red zone. It's okay to have a flare up, but it's really trying to get that balance right, kind of like that balance of healthy lifestyle as well. So we know that then if you can see the warning signs coming, then you can put the strategies in place and have other people kind of encourage you as well. So that's just some of the tools that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to hand over to Hong, who's going to give us some more strategies as well.
Okay, thanks, Zoe. I'm conscious of time as well, and I know we've packed a lot of information in this, so grateful that it's going to be recorded. Probably something that you should watch back again if all of this is going too fast for you. But I guess the next few slides that I'll be talking about is more about the mind, body, world strategies and skills. And these are skills that don't come easily or naturally for many of us. So drawing on experts such as psychologists and OTs, physios, and some physios, OTs even do special training as well into this area. So it's very important to spend time looking at building your toolkit with these skills. So taming thoughts, we get the young people and parents to become thought detectives. So it involves being able to spot sort of unhelpful thinking patterns. These could be sort of danger messages or messages that are catastrophizing. It might be, for example, oh, it hurts too much, I'm too tired today. And then once you notice that thought, it's about then trying to sort of flip it or reframe it into something a little bit more helpful, less danger, so maybe more safe. So it might be like, oh, I'm sore today, but I know going out for a little bit will be good for me. Distraction, that's probably the top tool for a lot of young people, and I think naturally all of us would, we crave to do something that helps take our minds off things. But I think it's really important that distraction doesn't lead to unhealthy behaviours. So, for example, missing a lot of school, avoiding going to school, avoiding, walking can lead to, issues that impact on a person's function down the track, and they can become their own problems themselves. Relaxation, we all have our go-to faves, whether it's music, reading, and keep doing those things, we say. But using some formal relaxation techniques, so for example, deep breathing, imagery, progressive muscle relaxation, they're sort of like superpowers for calming and even energizing our nervous system as well. So, you know, have a mix of both is really good. And I think with the more formal techniques, they do target the mind-body world a bit more effectively. So that's sort of, you know, just knowing a little bit of the difference. Keeping up with enjoyable physical activities, social activities, we know, doing things that you love, exercise, or promote good feel good hormones. I like to say, you know, exercising or getting out and being physical makes us smarter, you know, in terms of new cells generating that we all have. Nature, a lot of young people do find connecting with animals and plants really easy, and I think this is lovely to combine the physical and you know, enjoy joyful activities. And we do spend some time helping young people to discover their sensory systems and looking at what may help with self-soothing or calming, as well as what could be energizing and uplifting, particularly if you are going through a flare-up. Yeah, you know, discovering or delighting in your senses, which we all have. The next slide is about mindfulness, and I won't spend too much time talking about this, but I just want to emphasize that this can be helpful for managing fatigue and flare-ups. Mindfulness is about connecting to the present, and for you know, practical things that we do here is getting young people to, you know, notice what they see, smell, feel, touch, and taste. And by connecting, you can slow down, and that in itself can help with preventing, you know, flare-ups related to boom and bust, for example. When we tune into our senses, that's all helpful for, again, being aware of our own body, mind world. And when you're going through a flare-up, I think it's easy for, you know, people to experience just you know, being harsh on themselves and being I guess, you know, feeling like they may let others down or not being able to do a good job. So mindfulness is really useful for being able to have more kindness for ourselves when we go through these things. At Skip, we do a couple of mindful activities that, you know, young people do enjoy, like sort of exploring out in the garden and, you know, doing mindful eating, mindful snacking. So things that you can get everyone involved in, the family and friends. So having all this information, and, you know, we've only just focused on some of the OT strategies and tools, but all information can be quite overwhelming if you don't have a way to sort of structure and organize things. So sharing with you a couple, one of our main charts that we use at Skip, and this is really simple, easy to do your own. It's a simple 4x4 sort of table. It's a one-pager, quick reference pain management chart. And what you'll see on this chart is that there are 4 rows. So the first row is just, you know, the normal everyday level of pain. It hurts a little, but I can still do all my normal things. And then the rows generally, as you can see, the pain goes up a little bit to the very bottom where it hurts so much. This is the level where I just can't think about anything else. It's that bad. And then you'll notice on the columns that there are sort of groupings of strategies, so movement, relaxation, distraction, and other. This is where you can combine psychology, asking for help, communication, medications. You know, can be creative in this area. But what we want and what we tell our young people is it's important to have something in each square. Even right down the bottom when pain is at its absolute worst, we still want to be doing something that we can move. We still want to be doing something relaxing, distraction, and some other tools as well. And sometimes we've had young people even integrate some of those other tools that Zoe mentioned, like the traffic light. So maybe rows 2 and 3 are yellow. Some young people like to put their pain scores on this against each of the row. And this can be really helpful for communicating to mums and dads, teachers, so that adults don't have to ask them all the time what their pain is like. And also it gives us a guide as to how we can support the young person. So we'll have an indication they might be, say, in row 3, and we can have a look. Oh, okay, we'll get such and such ready, or we'll so some ideas of how they can help, because that can often be a common struggle for families. So very customizable, and we encourage our young people to adapt it. One for camp, one for the school holidays, because we know things that might be useful in a home setting might not be practical in other settings. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, other than to, I guess, acknowledge that there will be times when wheels do fall off the bike, where we might get back into sort of old habits that might not be that helpful for our pain. And this could be due to a big bump that we experience, or a lot of little bumps, close together. And when this happens, we tell people to not panic, and to start from square one. So you might just start with one thing in each of those boxes instead of 3 things, because it's very possible to boom and bust in the strategies too. So it's very important to just go slow. So start low, go slow is sort of our motto. And I guess recognizing that, accepting flare-ups and fatigue, that can be really hard. There's going to be good days and bad days as well. But if we can try and accept that this is something that we have but doesn't define us, it does open us up to be able to take on board these new skills and information. So just lastly, this is probably really important to emphasize, is that a young person's world matters, and we need to keep the connections going with people and places and activities. And if our world is small, then pain's going to be big, pain problems are going to be worse. So everyone has a role to play here in supporting a young person. With parents, we do talk about some tips. For example, validating but not focusing on the pain, giving positive attention, try not to accidentally reward negative behaviours, try not to overprotect, not over reassure, but not dismiss it either, having good communication, not defining the young person by their pain, and this can be unintentional, joining in on the strategies. Actually, a lot of these things are helpful for everyone. And I guess for schools and workplaces, healthcare teams, it's just remembering that the young person is in the centre of all of this. So communicate well, empower them, find out what they would like help with, and how that they would like that to look. And balancing, I think, that sort of independence, whole privacy, but also disclosure too, for particularly in places like work or school camps, for example. So these are just some resources which I encourage you to have a look back on the recording. There's some great tools here for health professionals and for parents, some online pain programs that could be useful for you. There's a great comic that might be good for really young kids to learn about pain science, and some excellent videos from the ACI website as well. All right, so finally we've come to the end, and just hope we've been able to sort of emphasize that body mind world connection. That was one of the things that we wanted to get through today, give you a lot of practical ideas, and hopefully you can bring this information to your healthcare team or your support team. We are very fortunate to be supported by lots of generous donors and sponsors, and all of the work that we do wouldn't be possible without them. And I just wanted to sort of highlight these photos. We had a camp a few years ago with young people, and flare-ups and fatigue were, as you can imagine, the top two struggles, even as staff had. And it was really good to actually walk them through a refresher on these strategies, and you know, be able to sort of give feedback and connect people as well. So yeah, it was yeah, a good opportunity. So looking for those things, I think we'll be grateful for your, you know, help with young people. All right, so some references, and I think we're ready for questions, if there are any.
Thank you.
Thank you so
much, Hong and Zoe. That was a fantastic presentation with loads of information for people to unpick there, and I'm sure our watchers will be pleased to know that they're getting the recording sent through so that they can go through and unpick things at their own pace, which is great. Those charts, I think, are so helpful for families, and I must say I did love that visual chart of the young person's soccer game, and I hope that he or she got to go to Movie World and enjoy their birthday party as well. So that's really nice to see.